Hello students, today we are going to see this topic ER model. Okay, so ER model means it's like a formula in your max. Okay, so in mathematics you want to solve a problem, there will be a formula. You will be applying that data which is given in the question to that formula, and you will find the solution. Okay, likewise. So if you want to create a database, then this model can be used. Okay, so this model is predefined set of instructions. Okay, the set of structure. So if you follow this structure, then you may get a uh, perfect answer. Okay, perfect database. Okay, to solve any kind of problem. Okay, so that's what the small intro about this ER model. So generally we use an ER model to know the complexity of the database design, and this model consists of collection of entities uh, where each of these entities will be interconnected to others with the conditions and dependencies. Okay, so we'll see in a detail way. Okay, so consider an example, uh, our school management system. Okay, school, there is a software for managing all the works related to school management. Okay, so details, student study details, students fees details, everything will be maintained by a software. Okay, so this software will consist of a database. Okay, so if you want to create the database, then you can use this entity relationship model for that school management system. Okay, so here you can see that these are all the three main uh, three main attributes. Okay, three main entities, okay, of a database. Okay, so uh, here you can see that modeling basic concept. Okay, so if you want to create a database using ER model, then you need all these three things. Okay, so first one is entity and entity type, second one is attribute, and the last one is relationship. Okay, so entity means the participants. Okay, you can shortly say as a participants. Okay, so here you can see that there are general concept which helps to create an ER diagram and produce an ER model. With the help of these any database design can be uh, created and viewed to know the concepts of database design. So if you want to create any kind of database, you can use this ER model, and you can apply the data to it, and you will get the result as effective database. Next is entity and entity type. So an entity can be anything, a real world object or animation which is easily identified by anyone, even by a common people. Okay, common person or common man. So in our example, school management system, student is an entity, a teacher is an entity, non-teaching staff is an entity. Okay, so these are all the main uh, main person or main objects that are involved in the project. Okay, so here you can see that any real world object, even you can take an example, a famous app redbus.com. Okay, so redbus is an application, so that redbus application will book you tickets to travel. Okay, so in that project or in that software, what are all the entities? So the passengers are the entities, main entities. Okay, so if there is no passengers, then the project is waste. So next entity is bus. Okay, so bus, and travels. Okay, so and the route. So these are all the entities. Okay, these are all the entities that are related to that projects. Okay, so likewise you can create any kind of entity which is involved in real world activity. So example, here they have given an example. So in a company's database, employees, HR managers are considered as entity where each of these entities will be having their own attributes. Okay, attributes means their works, their activities. Okay, so if you take a school management system, student student is an entity, so he is having some attributes. Okay, so he is here to study. So teacher their activity is to teach. Okay, so that is the attribute here. Okay, so an entity is represented by a rectangular box. Okay, so if you want to represent this model in a diagrammatic way or in a pictorial way, then you will be using this rectangle box for entity. Okay, so next is types of entities. Okay, so there are three types of entity. So strong entity, weak entity, and entity instance. We'll see one by one. So strong entity. Strong entity is one which doesn't depend on other entity on the schema or database. And a strong entity will have a primary key within it. So which other entities will not have in their attributes. It is represented by one rectangle, and in the above example, it is a strong entity because it has primary key. As the the roll number becomes the unique ID. Okay. So here you can take that start an student entity. Okay, so student will have their own roll numbers. Okay, so if you go for 10th standard public exam, you can see that you'll be provided a roll number. So that roll number will be unique for every student. Okay, so here you can see that student is a main part of the project. Okay, so all these facilities, all these staffs are working to improve the students education. Okay, so here student is a strong entity. Okay, so it is also known as a strong entity since you are providing an unique value to it. Okay, unique value to it to identify the student. So that is the way of identifying an entity is strong entity or weak entity. Okay, so next is weak entity. So weak entity is depend on other entity and it does not have any primary key like strong entity. It represents double rectangle. Okay, so if it is provided with double rectangle, then you could see that that is a weak entity. Say in our example, teachers. Okay, so teachers always depend upon students. Okay, if there is no student in the street in the school, then teachers has no work there. Okay, so teachers are weak entity as per the model. Okay, so likewise you can see that in redbus.com example. Okay, so without passengers, the travels or the bus is useless. Okay, So passengers must be there so that they can use the service here. Okay, so that here passengers are the strong entity, and travels, buses, drivers are all weak entity. Okay, so they'll be denoted by using this double rectangle. So why these symbols are provided like rectangle, double rectangle, oval shape? So all this can be provided in this pictorial representation. So first of all, when you produce a when you are intended to create a project, they will be creating the database. So before creating the database, they'll be having a rough sketch what are all the participants are there in the database. Okay, so that rough sketch is the model. Okay, so by using the model itself, you can just create the database just by seeing that picture. Okay, so that picture is is told here in this section. Okay, so this explained in this section. Next is entity instant. Okay, so instance or the value of the entity, uh, if consider animal as entity, their instant is dog, would be cat, dog, cat, cow, etc. So an entity instance denotes the category of value for the given entity. So here you can see that human, male, female, animal, dog, cat, lion, job, engineer, doctor, lawyer, actors, and electronics, laptops, mobiles, etc. Okay, so you are being categorizing the uh, you can see that for example in our student database, student management system, uh, the students is categorized into standards. Okay, first standard, second standard, third standard, fourth standard. So this is for categorizing the student. Okay, so first standard, second standard, third standard, up to 10th standard, 11th standard, 12th standard. So this kind of categorizing is known as entity instance. Okay, so in red bus example, passengers. Okay, passengers with passengers for AC, passengers for non-AC. Okay, passengers for sleeper, passengers for semi-sleepers. So these are all the categories of their respective projects. So next is attribute. Okay, so an attribute is an information about the entity. It will describe quality, quantity, classify and specify an entity. Okay, so this attribute will define what is an entity is. Okay, so student has an attribute of studying. Okay, so studying the subjects English, math, science, social. Okay, so here you can see that the any attribute will always have a single value. That value can be a number or character or string. Okay, any value. So here, student is having attributes like student name, student student class, section, roll number, something like that. Okay, so which standard is he studying? So everything will comes under this attribute. Okay, so there are types of categories: key attributes, simple attributes, composite attributes, uh, single valued attribute, multi-valued attribute. Okay, so key attribute means uh, key attributes means this is the main attribute of the database. Okay, so employee is a strong entity. Here you can see that the figure 3.7. So employee is a strong entity. It has one attribute. Okay, so one attribute, that is name of the employee. And here you can see that name is subdivided into subcategory. Okay, so that is known as first name and last name. Okay, so this is known as attribute. Okay, so name, first name and last name are the attributes of employee. So likewise, in student database you can see that student name is a database attribute. Okay, in which standard he or she is studying. Okay, so that is an attribute. So these are all some attributes that are uh, available in our example. So the simple attribute cannot be separated it with it will be having a single value for this, for their entity. For example, let us consider the name as the attribute for the entity employee, and here the value for that attribute is single value. Okay, so next is composite attributes. So the composite attributes can be subdivided into simple attributes without changing in the meaning of the attribute. For example, in the above diagram, the employee is the entity with the composite attribute name, which are subdivided into two simple attributes, first name and last name. So here composite means combining of two or more simple attributes and uh, forming a single attribute. Okay, so here you can see that first name and last name are the two simple uh, single valid attribute. Okay, so it is combined together to form a single attribute which is known as name. So here this name is a composite attribute. Okay, so next is single valid attribute. So as you can see that the name itself will be providing you the meaning uh, single valid. Okay, value. So the attribute will have only one value for that particular category. Okay, so in a student database standard. Okay, which standard is the student is studying? Okay, the first standard, second standard, it will be one value. Okay, so that is the example for this. Here you can see that uh, so next is multi-valid attribute. So here you can see that student will have multiple subjects. Okay, so in an example you can see that student will study multiple subject. This student will study English. The same student will also study in Tamil, Max, Science, Social, everything. Okay, so these kind of multiple values are linked to that particular entity is known as multiple valued attribute. Okay, so here in your book they have given degree. Okay, so a student will have so many degrees. Okay, so undergraduate degree is available, and postgraduate degree is available, and part-time degree is available. So one can take any number of degrees. Okay, so that's what it's shown here. So next is relationship. So this relationship is a here you can see that uh, the relationship between two entities. Okay, relationship. So in our school example, teacher is related to a student. Okay, so here you can see that the student cannot read or educate himself on its own, on her own, okay, or by her own, okay. So a teacher is necessary to teach everything, okay. So here you can see that relationship is created between two entities. So we are going to look into that. So there are one to one relationship, one to many relationship, many to many relationship, and relation instance, okay. So this is denoted by using this uh, diamond shape symbol, okay. So this is the diagram 3.9 shows that person is an entity, vehicle is an entity, but uh, the relationship between these two things is a driver, okay, drives. So student is an entity, teacher is an entity, so in between they'll be having teach, okay, teaching, teacher teaching, okay, teacher teaching to student. So driver drives the vehicle, passenger uses, okay, passenger travels in the bus, okay. So these are all the different types of relationship, okay. So if an entity having a connection of, if an entity is related to only one another entity, then it is known as one to one. So one to many means a single entity will be connected or related to many other entities, okay. So that is one to many relationship, many to many. So many entities will be connected to more number of or many number of entities. So that is known as many to many relationship, okay. So these all these things are given in this so the next thing is uh, relationship instance, okay. So each instance of relationship between members of these entity types are called relationship instance. So example, if working for, okay. So every work is denoted by using this. Every action that is done by the entities who are related uh, is known as relationship instant. For example, work for is the relationship between employee and employer. So Ram working for computer science department, okay. Sham works for electrical department. So these are all the different entities, relations, instance, okay. The entities are working in a department, okay. So next is degree of relationship. So priority is given here. So the number of entity types involved is known as degree of relationship. So one means unary, two means binary, three means ternary. So an example here. So an employee of an organization acts as a manager for few other employees. It also connects one entity to itself as a loop. So manager of is unary. Simply, employee works for the department connected to two entities, which is binary. If customer uh, if customer purchase item, it is involved to shopkeeper also and is a trinary uh, relationship. Okay, so one to one in degree of relationship is unary. One to two entities is known as binary, okay. So everything is given here. Trinary means three entities will be connected. Okay. Next is cardinality. Okay. So it is defined as the number of items that must be included in the relationship. That is number of entities in one set mapped with the number of entities on the another set by the relationship. By y means by the relationship. Hmm. Three classifications in cardinalities are one to one, one to many to many. The same thing. Okay. So this is explained here. One to one, one to many. So with this, we'll finish the class today. We'll see the ER diagram in the next class. Thank you, students.